This episode is brought to you by mental illness and Monster Energy drinks.
Monster Energy did not sponsor this episode. It was just required after I spent a week in the wilderness with two children who didn't have access to the internet for their electronics. So it turns out you guys were really f***ing interested in this little Camp Snap camera based on the fact that that was my most viewed video of all time.
And it's not even close.
Good to know that all the money I've spent on road trips and my Sony really paid off compared to a $70 camera and the scenery being my basement. My son Havoc has been showing an interest in photography lately, and in fact he helped me shoot this episode.
I even shot a few banger photos on this trip.
And I'm super proud he's learning by watching and taking it upon himself to be a part of this little pet project of mine.
I also really like the Camp Snap.
So some of these pictures might be his, we don't know. We were handing this thing off
Like two hippies in a smoke circle the whole week. At least you get to see the pictures, right?
Also, before anyone complains, yes, I did include some photos from my Sony on here, but it's easy to tell them apart because all the Camp Snap photos are in black and white, which is why I got this thing in the first place. When I first made my video about the Camp Snap camera, I'd only had it about a week, and in the interest of giving it a fair review, I decided to take it with us on our family vacation to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And no, Camp Snap did not sponsor this episode because apparently there are some cheap motherfuckers there. If you're interested in just seeing the photos from this camera, there are a ton of them in this episode. So if you don't want to listen to me go on and on about this camera, feel free to mute this track. But if you do, you, because these things suck to write, record, and edit.
The Upper Peninsula of Michigan is like the Wild West.
In the sense that it still has a certain kitsch of Americana to it. Former small motels that boomed in the 60s and 70s are now either abandoned or at the mercy of Airbnb bookings. There's only like 5 or 6 big box retail stores on the entire peninsula.
And you're driving for hours to get to them.
When I tell you that this place is remote, I mean it. Cell service is completely unreliable.
And the winters are 30 days of night level rough. There are bears, mountain lions, wolves.
And more importantly, insane people who could be lurking in the woods at any turn.
There's nothing like camping in a remote wilderness.
Where the only thing protecting you from a literal apex predator is a thin sheet of polyester. Remember, bears and other predators eat from the asshole in.
We all accept risks in our lives.
But it's still really cool and you should definitely visit it. Just be aware of your surroundings and you should be good. This is not legal advice and I am not a lawyer, or whatever I gotta say so you don't blame me for your grisly death. This is my nephew Jackson, who also makes YouTube content and somehow has more subscribers than me.
I got touched by the tism. I'm United Kingdom Animations. This is my uncle.
What's your uncle's
Ironwood.
Well, he's Jalen, basically.
Shot by Jay Allen.
Shot by Jay Allen, sorry.
I think the more I use the Camp Snap camera, the more comfortable I am with not knowing what my pictures look like until I plug it into my laptop. It made me more conscious of what my lighting and composition were because these were definitely photos I wanted to keep from this trip. And lighting is something that the Camp Snap struggles with in general. Any difference in lighting is not handled well by this camera.
You will suffer from this.
I've discovered the best lighting for shooting with a Camp Snap camera is consistent lighting, where there's no extreme light or extreme dark. If there's a lot of sunlight and you try to shoot into or from the shadows, you're either going to absolutely destroy your darks or completely blow out your highlights. What I appreciate most about the Camp Snap camera is that it's just easy and fun to use. You can hand it to anybody and they will know how to use this camera. Like I said in my last video, it's the most point and shoot to ever point and shoot, and I stand by that. But the more I use it, the more I capture memories and things I wouldn't normally shoot with my Sony. And some of those pictures turned out to be my favorites from the trip. The fact that it's controlled by one button makes it super convenient and easy. Photography YouTube has taken this weird turn where we're more worried about specs or bokeh or having the most top of the line gear we can find. And some of that gear has so much power in it that human interaction is barely needed to take a decent photograph. I feel like the Camp Snap puts the responsibility of taking a good photograph back into the hands of the photographer. It makes you really work and be conscious of your shots.
It makes you focus on the photography instead of the gear.
Another benefit of this camera is that people are not intimidated by this at all. If I pulled out my Sony on a beach and started pointing my lens at people, they'd probably start asking questions about why I was taking pictures. With this thing, I could pull it out in a crowded elevator and nobody would even know I was using it probably. Hopefully. I haven't shot any street photography with this thing yet, but I think it'd be perfect for it because of how inconspicuous and non-threatening it is. You would just have that tourist look about you, and tourists take a whole bunch of photographs. As per usual on a camping vacation, it f***ing rained.
And we discovered that our tent, which is probably older than Jesus, leaked.
Instead of getting a hotel like normal people would, we decided to tough it out and woke up to a brisk 50-degree morning in a mud puddle. where I wasn't motivated to shoot a damn thing. My only motivation was eating some breakfast and f***ing off eastward to where the rain wasn't gonna be, which ended up being near Munising, famous for the pictured rocks along Lake Superior. And I really love the way the Camp Snap captured the beaches near pictured rocks. It kinda reminds me of old postcards, and anybody who knows my style knows that is definitely something I'm into. There's something nostalgic and painterly about the quality of these photos. I don't know if that's me looking at the past through rose-colored glasses or just being into the knockoff film look, but either way, I like it. Do I think that the Camp Snap camera is some kind of miracle pocket camera that's going to change the photography game? Absolutely and unequivocally not. There are way better options out there if you're looking for a pocket camera. This camera is selling you an aesthetic and an experience. We bounced around the Upper Peninsula on our way back home, and my favorite stop was probably Thiborn Karst, which was an old mining operation that was abandoned in the early 1900s, where we were able to explore all the abandoned buildings to our heart's content, even though it looked like they were just begging to collapse on us. So if you're looking for something that's as minimal as you can get and just plain fun to shoot, this camera fills that slot. And it does an excellent job of making the shooting experience absolute fun. I still f***ing hate the fake shutter sound that it makes when you take a photo. And I still wish that there was more resolution in this camera. But I think that these things are forgivable for the ultimate purpose that this camera serves. I can tell you I spent way more time focused on the trip rather than focused on photography. And I only pulled the Sony out when I thought something was really worth photographing. It created more time and space for memories to be created, rather than worrying about my settings or ND filter on the Sony. I could just pull this out and take a quick snapshot. To summarize my feelings on this camera and hopefully answer any other questions that you may have about it. You're gonna have fun using this camera as long as you keep your expectations in reality. It is a $70 novelty camera. You aren't buying the latest and greatest technology out there, and you aren't going to be able to start a photography business using this damn thing. It is for casual photography purposes, and in my opinion, it is a great companion for adventures where you don't need all the resolution in the world. Too often I feel like photographers are worried about getting the most clean and crisp image they can instead of catching any candid shots that show emotion in a photograph. I think that this provides an opportunity for you to do that. And now, if you will excuse me, I'm going to try to recover from having 2 children scream at me for a whole week about not having internet. If you like what you've seen here, please consider liking, subscribing, or commenting. And hopefully I'll see you next time when I've been financially irresponsible again.
Like and subscribe.